Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the Resonance Podcast, coming to you from the range. My name is Maddie.
And I'm Logan.
And today we're joined by Will from the band Ships Have Sailed, a duo from Los Angeles. We recently met and worked with them a couple months ago at an unfortunate time for their tour. They had to stop alongside quitting Whitney, but despite the cancellation of their tour, they were able to stop by the range on their way back home and film a live session, which of course will be linked down in the description below. So, Mr. Will, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you guys holding up?
I'm doing all right, as good as you can be,
right.
at least. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a weird year, all in all, I would say.
It definitely has. There was a lot of excitement going into 2020,
Yeah.
especially after how great 2019 was. And then it just kind of snowballed into what it has become now. But
We're making the best of it
optimistic.
over
We're
here.
still looking forward. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say, is that we're all making the most of it. You guys are spinning up a new podcast. Thank you for having me on, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, it was, you mentioned our tour being canceled, and that was, of course, disappointing. But, like, our whole take on that is that you really can't, like, you can't pick and choose these situations. And so you have a choice whether to, like, really kind of just wallow in self-pity for a while or just pick yourself up and make the best of it. And I have to say, you guys were a big part in us making the best of kind of making our way back to LA. We really appreciate you going through with the live session, even if we couldn't play like an actual show. And it's pretty cool because now that it's out there, folks are super excited to see, like, what we're saying is that it's like the last time that we played in front of anyone, really.
Yeah.
So it's
I'm
cool.
excited. It came out really great, and like you said, I'm glad we got to do something despite, a lot of uncertainty during that time. I remember phone calls with you and the other band, just like we were both like, okay, well, what if this happens? Like, okay, we can try to do this, make this work. And I'm glad we still got, to get something out of it and, turn out something for your fans. So thank you as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, you guys kind of made the tail end of our trip there. It was super fun. Great meeting all of you. You're great dudes, and you've got a great space, and we can't wait to come back after all of this is over.
Definitely.
All right. Can't wait
I remember.
to have you guys back,
Yeah, definitely.
Well,
Maddie's got some questions prepared for you guys.
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready.
These are great questions. Oh, the hard stuff. We're starting sort of easy and then sort of easing into the hard stuff, if that's all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
we can do it that way.
First question here. What has been the biggest challenge or adjustment for you guys you've experienced when it comes to no longer doing live shows in front of an audience?
Right. So that is going to be a complicated and rambling answer. The first piece of that answer, you have to understand that 2020 was supposed to be a live year for us. So we had been creating in the studio for about the past like 6 to 9 months, and mostly just playing like festivals and local shows. And that was kind of like 2019 for us. And 2020, we were out on our first leg of tour when the pandemic kind of escalated. But I was in the middle of planning at least 2 to 3 more over the course of the year. And obviously, as everything was going sideways, I was coming to a realization that, like, I'm always in my head, like my brain is always working. So I like running these scenarios like, okay, well, if this only lasts for 3 months, right? Think of how many shows are going to be pushed just in 3 months. And then, Live Nation obviously is going to be Live Nation and Ticketmaster, like the big events and the big artists are going to be dominating those. And then right underneath those are kind of like all the artists who have shows that were actually postponed. They're going to fill up all of the other calendars. So like new bookings with indie artists who are kind of like up and coming that's not going to be a thing. I was starting to realize, even with a 3-month scenario, which this is clearly not, that's not going to be a thing that we're going to be able to do until at least 2021. And at this point, I'd say like for artists like us, it'll probably be the back half of 2021, if even that, if I'm being realistic. So with that being said, we had a lot of adjustment to do. Coming back to LA, we had to figure out what we were going to keep people excited about and interested in. And I'm sure we can get to that in a minute. The one other thing I want to say is that like the big thing around like live performances that my brain has been super focused on is finding a way to do like good virtual shows, like not just virtual shows from my living room on my iPhone, but decent quality audio, decently mixed.
Exactly.
Maybe find like a venue like soundstage that we can use to just like set up everything and then break it down afterwards. I don't know. So like that's kind of
that's definitely something we've been, throwing back and forth internally, is like we want to do some live stream shows, but we want to make sure they're of a quality that we feel comfortable actually charging people. No matter what, if it's $1 or $5 to purchase a link to view a band on our stage, we were just like, how do we make sure we can set this up in a way that has a justified price tag? Because we're already doing our live sessions, and we don't want to like say like, okay, well now pay for them like that. It didn't seem fair to our audience or the bands that we were working with. So it definitely has been not a struggle, but just a hard time navigating that and just figuring out what is best for all parties involved.
Yeah, it's it's interesting, and we're obviously not alone in this. Like either we or you, everybody's dealing with having to shift how they operate, and like even companies, like everybody's on Zoom, and like nobody has childcare. Like it's a really interesting thing. I saw a comment online, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but I thought it was funny. I saw a comment online about like somebody's Uber Eats driver asking them to come out to like get their food instead of bringing it to the door. And they go out, and there's like a 2-year-old just like curled up asleep like a cat in their front seat, because like I guess they don't have anywhere to leave their kid. Like everybody's adjusting. So definitely. I guess at the very least, we can be thankful that our hurdles are technology based and probably solvable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it started raining here. I don't know if it's coming through on either Maddie's or my mic, but this
is a rare occurrence, raining here.
Yeah, here in New Mexico, it's rare to hear the rain on the rooftop. Yeah, but I feel that. I've been keeping up with you guys on Instagram, and I see you're doing your We Rise segment, which is a great way to stay engaged with your audience. I don't know if you want to maybe elaborate on that a little bit more.
Yeah, in fact, that's an interesting topic this week, especially because I had posted the last We Rise segment that I had prepared last week, and I'll circle back to that. The We Rise segment, well, first of all, it's based around our single Rise, and that single, it had been done for quite a while, and I just didn't really have an idea of, like, it hadn't told me where it should live in our story yet. So it'd been done for over a year, and
oh wow,
it just hadn't found a reason to release it, if that makes sense. And actually, it was on the drive back from Las Cruces to Los Angeles that the first verse just kind of like popped into my head out of nowhere. And I was just like, wait a minute, like this is actually a really good like motivational jam that could be like impactful to people right now in this moment.
Definitely.
And so it kind of gave me a jumping off point to like, okay, You know, of course, Art and I talk, there's lots of time to talk on the road when you're in a van for like 13
Yeah.
hours. So as soon as I kind of like had this spark of an idea, I was like, hey, like, should we release this song actually? And we talked about it, and very quickly we're both on the same page that we should. And so that kind of gave me like a task as soon as we got back to LA, because a song release, even just a single, like it usually you want to give yourself like 6 to 8 weeks to as a runway. And
Yeah.
this one I wanted to get out like really quickly because I was just feeling it. So we gave ourselves 4 weeks, and I did a whole bunch of like legwork that I normally give to somebody else, like, you know, press and Spotify outreach and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
decided that because of the situation, I was just going to do it myself, and release the song, and figured out, like, I always try to make some compelling content pieces around a single release. And the We Rise segments were kind of a part of that. Um, and really, they were just, you know, we have a group of very dedicated supporters online. And, you know, I started doing kind of like Monday mental health check ins in this group. And people were kind of like being really nice and supportive to each other. And it was really encouraging. And it gave me this idea to just reach out and ask people to share like the things that they're doing out in the world, or what they're seeing other people do, to just kind of like go above and beyond and help during this difficult time, and kind of like show us the best of humanity, even as we're all kind
Definitely.
of like dealing with our fears and our anxieties, and like whatever, like the unknown brings out sometimes the worst in humanity, but it can also bring out the best. And what I've noticed in this particular situation, which at the time was only the pandemic, um, is that really I was seeing the best coming out of people. So I wanted to embrace that and kind of shine a light on it. And that was what the We Rise segments were all about.
Mm-hmm.
And then, not to get super political or to ramble further, which I like to do, but like, you know, the socio-political climate now has taken a shift. And so last week I had posted what was going to be the final We Rise segment, but past couple weeks have shown us like a really bigger message around people in our country coming together and kind of putting aside their perceptible differences and just being human. And I think it's a really powerful thing. And, you know, of course I'm a white dude, and so it's a little bit hard to like wrap your head around where you fit into that conversation. And and of course trying to frame all of that as respectfully as possible. But I felt like there were a couple other things that needed to be said. And so I just created a couple more segments just kind of like on the fly. And one of them I didn't even edit the video. Like it literally is just like start to finish. It's just one clip. And just kind of like saying what was in my heart after like reacting to everything that I was seeing out in the world. And yeah, so those just went live this week, and that I think will wrap up the series because it's gone on for quite a while. And I don't know, but it was cool. Like it's very amazing that people can be so open with sharing their experiences. And a lot of these stories were pretty heavy, and a lot of them were really long. They took a lot of editing, but all in all, I feel blessed that people like trust me with their stories, you know, and allow me to share them with, you know, a larger platform. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly, you know, it's something I enjoy watching. Like I said, I follow you guys personally, and it's definitely a good way to keep not only community engagement, but just that community that is engaged is uplifted from the message that you guys are spreading. So I thank you, and I don't know if most of your community is saying that too, but I'm sure they are thankful for what you guys are spreading.
Well, thank you guys for following along. I really appreciate that. And yeah, like I think it's super cool. Like these days with social media, it's great in a way, and it can be weird in other ways. But I think the cool thing about the artist and fan relationship is that it can get really, really interactive. So while these folks are there like supporting us and getting excited when we release music and stuff, like I feel like it's kind of my responsibility to give a little back for them, and kind of like, of course in a guided sort of way, but like share our platform with them if they're willing to, participate in whatever the idea is that we're itching at, so to speak. You know what I mean? So I've been trying to do a lot more of that.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, you mentioned Art a few minutes back. It's the other half of Ships Have Sailed. I don't know if you want to give some background on him and kind of describe who he is, since he's not here to do it for himself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to speak for other people, but Art is my brother from another mother. He is, man, he's a really good dude, and he's a super talented drummer. And we met over the phone.
Oh, wow.
The beginning of this project, we were working with another drummer for our live shows, and he had a lot of irons in the fire. He was like a session guy, and so we got this awesome opportunity to go and play Canadian Music Week up in Toronto. And this was like at the very beginning of Ships Have Sailed even having any sort of live presence. And so that was like a huge, exciting opportunity for us. And our current drummer could not make the trip. So I asked we had a bass player at the time. His name was Dan. Still is Dan. He's no longer. Still is a great friend though. And so I asked him, because he was also playing around with a bunch of other bands, and I was like, hey, do you have a drummer who you like really trust, but they've got to be a quick study, and they have to be like, I'm very OCD. So I was like, they have to like be attention to detail and like meticulous with the parts, and like, I know you know what I'm looking for. Do you know a guy like that? And he was like, well, I do know a guy like that. And so he like connected Art and I, and we talked over the phone. And I sent him some tracks and some like notes on them over email. And we had 2 rehearsals. And then we got on a Spirit Air red-eye flight to Cleveland. Wow. It was awful. And picked up a rental van, drove across the border to Toronto. We got harassed at the border because Art was born in Armenia. So like he is a US citizen. He moved to LA like super, super young, but like he was born there. So in addition to us having like all sorts of like music equipment in the van, like I feel like Border Patrol was just like giving us a little bit of a hard time.
Yeah.
It was in that I don't know if you're aware, but like there was maybe 6 months to a year where Canada was like they were confiscating bands' merch when they would like go across the border.
That's crazy.
And then they realized that it was a bad idea. There was like some backlash happening online, and Canadians were getting pissed off because they're like, dude, like US bands aren't going to come anymore.
Yeah. What was the reasoning behind that?
In theory, you're not really supposed to be like selling your stuff. It's like doing business over there. But in the past, they had kind of like looked the other way. And then I guess what happened after that is that they were just like, okay, well, if you're bringing them as promotional items, we won't confiscate them, type of thing. But you're not supposed to sell it.
Well, I mean, like we were having some discussions with some bands from Mexico City to come play here, and they obviously have to get work visas to come play over here.
Mm-hmm.
So I do get that.
Yeah,
to an
for
extent,
sure.
but it's definitely a little far
Yeah,
confiscating all of that.
with Canada, I mean, if you're playing for a festival and it's an unpaid showcase, you can just go. But you need like a letter from the festival organizers and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And if you bring merch, it has to be promo stuff. You can't be intending to sell it. Which makes total sense. But then, don't steal it from me if I'm just going to go and give it away for free too. So I think it was like in that range of time where they were being a little bit more like salty with bands as they went over. So they kind of gave us a hard time. We were at customs for like an hour. Finally got to our hotel. It was like 3 of us in a hotel room. We played a great set. We ate too much poutine. Like everybody got along. It was a super, super fun trip. But can you imagine like this guy who literally has talked to, like we talked once and then had 2 rehearsals and then went on this whole freaking adventure.
Yeah.
So
wow.
like
that is awesome.
Yeah, as we were kind of like getting back to LA, I was kind of like, this is the guy, like everything was chill, everything was fun. The show went really well. Even the unideal stuff like Spirit Air and all that stuff, the fiasco at the border, like it was fine. Nobody really batted an eye, and everybody was like relaxed and had a great time.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, it's really hard, I guess it's really hard to find someone that you really trust like that. So I'm glad that you guys have managed to work that out. But I have a question on the same vein of sort of live shows. This is a very important question. So
yeah.
Can you describe the very first Ships Have Sailed concert to us?
Well, it sounds like that was the first one, right? They're traveling together?
Well, that was the first one with Art, and it was the first one actually. First show ever was actually at House of Blues on Sunset Strip, which no longer exists. It's very sad. It got knocked down to build a hotel, like a massive hotel. Wow. So that's a huge shame. It was not on the main stage. It was in a little tiny room that's like off the foundation room called the Parish Room. And I have to say it was not that good. Like, but first shows kind of aren't supposed to be. We just wanted to get out there and, we invited a bunch of friends and we just kind of like went out there, ripped the Band-Aid off and did it, So like the sound wasn't great. We didn't quite have our tracks dialed in yet. And it was a little bit rough around the edges, but that's okay. I mean, like your first show or your first whatever, it's going to be a learning experience. Even if you've been in bands for years, like with a new project and a new lineup and new songs, it's always going to be an experience.
Yeah. Well, next up on the list of topics, we have our recently played on Spotify. This is where we ask you to look at your Spotify account and kind of give us a deep dive into who you've been listening to.
This is going to be fun. It actually caught me at a point where the last thing that I did on Spotify was actually make a playlist for an online outlet. And I'm just going to pull up that list of songs because it's going to be a lot quicker.
All right.
If I can find it.
And then Maddie and I will get into some of the songs we've been listening to recently.
All right, so we've got Isolation by Two Door Cinema Club. God Save Our Young Blood by Borns featuring Lana Del Rey. Graceless by The National. The National has been like a recent favorite of mine. And then Ohio by Andrew McMahon and The Wilderness, also a favorite of mine. Hate That You Know Me by Bleachers, which is always a good time.
Yeah.
We Sink by Churches, which that particular song I've really like, might be a close favorite off of their first record.
Mm.
And then the remastered version of Where the Streets Have No Name by U2, which I actually
Nice.
was using as like a mix reference at first, and then I was like,
Yeah.
forgot how much I love that song. Desperate Weather by Talk Time. The Heart is a Muscle by Gang of Youths. Sucker by my friend Dan Sadin, who I've been creating with
Oh, wow.
frequently over the past months. Intimidated by Talker, who's also a friend of ours and local to LA. Loveless by Low Moon. F It, I Love You by Lana Del Rey. Got My Way by Moon Tower. Talk Too Much by Coin, because it's a classic.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
Future classic, I like to say. Avalanche by Walk the Moon. Something New by our good friends Quitting Whitney, because I love that song.
Definitely.
Yeah.
When You Were Young by The Killers, and then Monster by Mumford and Sons.
Mumford
Heck yeah,
and
that's a
Sons,
great
nice.
playlist.
Yeah.
We're going to ask you to share it here in our Discord server in our channel where we share our playlists that we make now that you're a part of the community. But Maddie, if you want to go ahead and share some of what you've been listening to recently.
Well, I don't know if I should be embarrassed or not, but I've been really getting into Owl City. What is the name of that album? Oh my gosh, I have it right here. Oceanized, album by Owl City. I used to love that album when I was a kid, but I've recently been starting to get back into it. And then there's this other band that I used to love when I was a kid, Reliant K, kind of underground, but yeah. Logan, what about you?
Well, I've been listening to a lot of music from this band called Stevie Dinner. I don't know how to describe it. They probably have a better word to describe themselves, but I like to call it like almost like surreal indie. It's
nice.
It's really cool, like some really experimental sounds that they've got going on. Joy Again, Ultra Q, just some more of that like same surreal indie. I don't think that's the right word for it, but that's what I've been calling it. And
works for me. I like that.
Just been into it. So next, Maddie, we have another question for you.
Yes. Sort of on the same vein, you mentioned local, I think you mentioned a local artist in your playlist. Do you have any sort of local bands or local artists that you guys are real big fans of that you'd like to showcase?
Well, I mean, of course, we're big fans of our friends Quitting Whitney. And, we'll do a do-over of this tour eventually once everything gets back to normal.
Mm.
But yeah, like LA is a really cool, really rich, like local music scene. And I feel like once you kind of start to get to know people, everybody just kind of becomes friends. So the few that I mentioned on the playlist were Dan Sadin, Talker, Moon Tower is also from LA. They're also local. Really cool band. Talk Time is local. And then on the heavier side, I've got a really good friend who has a great band called New Language. I love going to their shows, really good energy on stage. And they have a killer lighting show as well. There's some great local artists around here.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely do our best to link to everyone you mentioned so that they get their spotlight. Maddie, if you want to ask a question.
All right, well, I do have a question, and this is, again, an essential question that I'm sure the fans would love to hear. What is your favorite setting to listen to music in, whether it be earbuds, driving somewhere in the car, etc.? I would love to know.
It depends. It depends on, like... So, like, obviously, if I'm creating, the setting is the studio. I don't mind earbuds. I have a really nice pair of in-ear monitors that's like it's kind of
Nice.
new to me, but it's like they really sound amazing. So I like that. I think the setting isn't as important as like I'm a little bit weird in that like when I'm really trying to listen, I like to close my eyes.
Okay.
So kind of doesn't
Yeah.
matter the set. Well, actually, that would be really dangerous in a car. But but apart from that, the setting doesn't really matter. Like as long as I can close my eyes and just kind of like hear music and like feel it,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I feel like my eyes trick me sometimes.
In this time of almost forced reflection, what are some highlights of the past you want to mention or you've been thinking about?
Um, Honestly, like it just blows my mind how much we take for granted as humans. Like,
Oh yeah.
uh, my wife and I like to go out and just like grab a glass of wine and like some food at a local restaurant, like when we've had like a long day,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
There's none of that going on. I mean, things are opening back up, but for us, we're probably not going to be heading back out into like public restaurants anytime soon.
Yeah.
Um, I'll probably give it like at least another month. And so just things like that, things like being able to like call your friend up and like go meet them out somewhere, even if it's
Mhm.
like taking a hike and like, you know,
Yeah.
you get to wherever you're going and you see each other and you're like, hey, how's it going? And you give them a hug, you know, like it's these things that you take for granted every day. And like now all of a sudden, like we have to think twice about everything that we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like going to the grocery store has become like a stressful activity,
Mm.
which sounds so weird and ridiculous. But
It was
so I've
already
just been
stressful
kind of,
before.
well, I mean, fair. It depends. It depends on what your mission is, right?
Yeah.
Any mission can be stressful for sure. But yeah, like it just, it's been kind of blowing my mind how much we take for granted. And like, I don't know, I've been trying to be really thankful for the things that I do have. Like I used to work in restaurants for years,
Mhm.
um, back before I moved to LA. And like at the time, restaurants were like maybe not the greatest job to have, but I really appreciate it now. Like I know how to cook.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I can, you know, my wife has been saying frequently, she's like, you know, like why do we even go out? Like we're eating so well. And it's like it's true. We are eating really well. Like and um that's something that I kind of take for granted, but I'm really, really grateful in this situation that like I'm good in the kitchen because otherwise we'd be eating like ramen and spaghetti and like getting really tired of both of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand that. Um, well, you mentioned before that like priority list with everything getting canceled and like not seeing yourself play in the near future. And we mentioned this to Quitting Whitney as well. It's like you guys are in that sense you're on our priority list to get you back when things do get back to normal. So that's I don't want that to be anything that's not unclear or still vague. Is like we want you to come back and we understand that your show was the first one to get canceled at our venue. So
Mhm.
you guys are on that priority list when things open back up.
Well, thank you so much, Logan. That really means a lot. And you know, like it's it's tough. Like I would like to think that that would be the case for every venue that canceled on us. I
Mhm.
unfortunately like I'm not sure that it is. So thank you for saying that, and thank you for, you know, like holding us to that standard because like yeah, we want to come back too. Like I think there were actually quite a few people who even pinged me online personally and were like, "Hey, we're going to be at your show like
Yeah.
in Las Cruces. It's going to
Mhm.
be awesome." Like people were actively like anticipating us being there, which was awesome because we've never played in Las Cruces before.
Yeah.
So like we were looking forward to it, and we're definitely looking forward to coming back.
Thank you. Well, before we wrap things up here, we are going to make it tradition to ask you guys or whoever we have guests on the show if they have any specific advice they'd like to pass on to some new musicians.
Yeah. How long do we have left? Do we have like a few hours?
We have as long as you want.
We're always here. Keep talking.
Yeah.
Mostly joking. It's just like, like what do you say? I mean, I guess.
Well, I mean, is there something that has been said to you that you would like to specifically pass on, or that you have taken to heart? Something that you've found to be true that someone else has told you, maybe.
I mean, there's many things, but I guess what I'll boil them down into is like, number one, you're not gonna be a perfect songwriter or musician or producer or anything that you're doing or anything that you're trying to do right away, right? It's one of those things where it's like the 10,000 hour rule, but you have to start somewhere, right? So I think actually Dave Grohl has a famous quote about like, the first time you write a song, it's gonna suck. The first time you play in a band, it's gonna suck, and then you're gonna do it for like longer and longer, and you're gonna like find joy out of it, and over time you're gonna suck a little bit less, type of thing. That I think is like maybe a little bit of a negative spin on it, and like very Dave Grohl-esque. He's like very like off the cuff, and like it's cool. It's like his personality. What I'll say is that you have to start somewhere, and you have to put in the time, and it's a long process, and the work isn't going to start. Rather, the work isn't going to stop. Like, just because you get to a certain level doesn't mean that there isn't further to go.
Sure.
And as soon as you start becoming comfortable in your creativity, it's time to switch it up. And I don't know, like, if you're not in it to enjoy the process and enjoy the fact that it's going to continuously be work, no matter how successful you get, success is just a perception, really, like, but I guarantee that, like, let's just say I'm making it up, Ryan Tedder. I guarantee that dude works so hard every single day. Like, he's not successful because somebody just like stumbled on him and was like, oh, you're cool, you're good, and you have a good look, so like let's make you a rock star. He writes like the most undeniable songs, and he's not going to quit on, like, he writes for himself, he writes for other artists, he's not going to quit on that song until it is right. You know what I mean? And I guarantee he probably like sleeps less at night than most people and works a lot harder. But that's what it takes. So be prepared to work hard and hopefully have a lot of fun, because if you're not having fun with what you're doing, like, what's the point of pursuing art? Because there's so many easier ways to make a living than trying to like to do it.
Nice.
Well, I think that's some great advice.
Yeah, I love that.
We're gonna open up the floor for you to plug whatever else you have next or going on next. I know you have a music video coming up, but we'll let you kind of showcase what you got going on.
Yeah, so we were going to release a single this month, and instead we're going to release it next month, because I think the idea is that we are going to leave room for the conversations that are currently happening in our country and in the world to happen. And so we're going to postpone the release of our single until next month. But you can find us on social media at Ships Have Sailed, or you can use our website, shipsofsailed.com, as a jumping off point. Stay in touch and you'll know exactly when that single is going to drop. It will be followed up by a music video, which is actually first for us, the type of video, and I'm not going to give it away. It's super cool. The first time we've done anything like this.
Nice.
And it was not done out of necessity this year, but it kind of makes sense given what we are all going through.
Yeah.
And then we are fortunate to have one of our songs being used in an NBC show next week.
Nice.
Called Council of Dads. It's a new show. It's a really sad show. And it's about a family who loses their, the kids lose their father. The wife loses her husband to cancer. And in preparation for him taking his next step in his journey, he's recruited these 3 guys, kind of all different types. Like one's older, one's kind of middle-aged, one's a little bit younger.
Mm-hmm.
And he's recruited them to be kind of like this council of dads that is going to shepherd his family through the first year after his passing. And that's the premise of the show. And it's really, my wife and I have been watching it, and it's oddly significant to us just because her mom just passed of cancer a couple months ago, rather.
Wow.
Yeah, like 2 months ago, actually. And so she had been battling it for a while, and it just happened that she passed during this pandemic. And my wife was actually able to go and spend some time with her before that happened. So we're really grateful for that. And we are also grateful that she's in a better place. Obviously, it's a situation that is not going to be like happy no matter what. And you got to process. So this show has been strangely part in us processing that. And the fact that like they reached out and wanted to use one of our songs is just it's a little bit mind-blowing. So we're super excited about that. And I'm I don't know what scene it's going to be in. I'm hoping it's something that is impactful and emotional, and I hope that our song adds to their story, so that's what's going on with us. It's pretty exciting.
Nice.
And
cool.
Behind the scenes there's a lot of creation going on, because what else do you do when you're stuck at home?
Yeah, we started a podcast, so I'm glad to see other people are doing similar things and making more music, putting out albums, quarantine albums, doing all this quarantine creativity, which is great. But thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to see both of your faces, even virtually.
Yeah.
And I really look forward to being able to see them again in person, hopefully sooner than later.
Us too.
Yeah, we cannot wait to have you guys back. But yeah, as you all know, links to all these social media will be down in the description. Again, Will, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. This has been awesome.
And we will see you all in the next episode.
Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. Drop a comment to share your feedback and let us know who you'd like to see perform next. There are also links in the description to find the band's social media and music. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Check out our website to learn more about concerts and events hosted here at The Range. Join us on Discord to talk about your favorite music and share your creations with the community. Consider checking us out on Patreon to help support more content like this while gaining access to behind-the-scenes footage, giveaways, and more.